risk. Back to Shawnee.
Where we are today in terms of navigating the change from fully insured to self-funding is really looking at engaging a third-party administrator to continue with our current network with United. That way, we will be focused on minimizing the disruption to our employees, and really the change will be financial in nature. There will be some programmatic changes and a little bit of plan change as we move into self-funding. But for the most part, we're looking at minimizing any of that disruption to make this jump. We are continuing to explore whether or not an internal service fund or Section 115 agreement trust is going to be the best opportunity for the town to make sure that we are legally compliant with self-funding and all of the regulations, as well as fiscally conservative and responsible as part of this process. So our next steps in terms of timeline, today we're here just to receive any feedback that you might have on this initiative. And we would expect over the next few weeks to receive both our self-funding, our stop loss, and our fully insured renewal rates so that we can begin working with Dave and his team on modeling and ensuring that this is going to be the right time for us to make this jump. If we are continuing to move forward, we will look at implementing that third-party administrator ahead of our open enrollment in May for a fully, a self-insured plan year starting on July 1. That, I will take any questions that you might have.
Council, do you have any questions for staff? Go ahead.
So that was July of this year that you're
Yes.
thinking it's going to be happening? So is this like an umbrella policy and it includes everything from liability to property to?
We're looking specifically at health insurance for self-funding. We're not looking at doing any self-funding for our property liability or workers' comp. That is a separate policy under the Arizona Municipal Risk Retention Pool. So specifically for our medical insurance and moving forward.
It overwhelms me when you go to the doctor anymore and you're thinking maybe a procedure is going to cost $4,000 and you get the hospital bill alone and it's $25,000 plus the surgeon, plus the anesthesiologist, plus the laboratory work. And you're like, whoa, things have just gone completely out of control of what you end up paying. And that's with insurance. So I'm trying to visualize what it would be like with being self-funded. We still have our health insurance for now. Will we always have health insurance through another company like Blue Cross Blue Shield or something like that as well? Or it's separated, right?
Yes, and I'm
Pulled
going to
apart.
turn over to Dave to talk a little bit about the difference between the third-party administrator and your network, which is going to be the carrier like United or Blue Cross Blue
Okay,
Shield.
that's the part I guess I'm getting kind of confused on.
Yeah, I just try to make it hopefully a little bit more simple. Self-funding to fully insured, you're literally just simply changing who pays the bill. Now, there's some nuances in there, and they're important, but in the most fundamental way, it's simply the town is going to pay for the claims versus an insurance carrier is going to pay for the claims. Now, the town doesn't actually pay claims, so the town is going to contract with a third-party administrator, and that third-party administrator is going to utilize the United Healthcare Network, which is what is utilized today, and they're going to use that network to pay the claims. So that example that you gave, that hospital, the anesthesiologist, the physician, the ambulance driver, everybody else is going to submit the claim to the third-party administrator. They're going to adjudicate what the true cost is according to the contract. The third-party administrator is going to then pay that claim, and then they're going to reach out to the town and ask for the town to fund those dollars.
And I, as an employee or a patient having to use those services, you still have a copay or your deductible to begin with every
Yeah.
year. And then I know so you kind of threw in the vehicle thing and it threw me. So I was like, oh, we're doing everything. And I know as a private individual, usually you have to be in millionaire status to be self-insured. I couldn't do it on my income right now, is what I'm saying. Do we have the money and the funds already retained, like in a separate account just for that? So we would be having a third-party administrator. That means it would not be handled in-house per se. And it wouldn't be our employee, it would be an outside employee. So do we have to have the funds in place before this all transitions over to it? And like, is there a minimum that we have to come up with in order to be able to do that? I mean, the town's big, so, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not thinking just one individual, I'm thinking, well, now times however many employees.
I'd be outside my lane to address that, so I'll turn to Selena.
Shorter. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, thank you for the question. We are looking at different modeling pro formas, I'll call them. And so what we plan to do is come to council with a recommendation for seed money to do the reserve. And then the rest we can actually build into the premium. But we don't really have enough information to show you that today. And so we'll have a couple different options on how we can build the reserve over time.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
But it's a great question.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to stress a couple points. One is the town, Shauna, Deshant, and I are not handling claims. Like we are not reviewing recommendations from doctors. We're not approving people's medical procedures. That is what is all going to be handled by this third-party administrator. Interestingly, United Healthcare, which is our provider, they are I believe the largest in the country. They've got a subsidiary component of United Healthcare called UMR, and that is who we're going to be working with. They're set up to work with jurisdictions like ourselves that are going to be self-insured. So there's a whole component of United Healthcare that works with self-insured entities. So long-term, we can go back out to bid, and that's something we'll talk about in the future of looking at, whether it's Blue Cross, Aetna, any of the others. So we're not wedded to United Healthcare, but because we're with United Healthcare, it is helping us to be able to set up this self-funded model because United has this whole subsidiary called UMR. So that's kind of why this actually, it kind of, good alignment for us to be able to move in that regard. The other thing is if we could just explain a little bit more the difference between a 115 trust account and an internal service fund so that the council really understands that difference.
Absolutely. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, just as a high-level overview, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. An internal service fund would actually be just a separate fund within our financials, and we would operate it similar to like a utilities or an enterprise fund. So we would actually segregate dollars into that fund and then run the self-insurance through there. It would be pretty much the equivalent of an insurance company. Section 115 would operate the same way, but it has different advantages where if you were to allocate money, for example, $1 million to the reserve, that would be part of the Section 115 only available for the medical plan. And so it would only be able to be used for self-insurance. So if something like an internal service fund, if we needed to do a loan from the general fund to the internal service fund, you could do that, but you couldn't do it with Section 115. And so sometimes it provides you some assurance where the money is set aside. So if there was a liability or something, those assets wouldn't be subject to that liability. Does that kind of give you an idea? It's kind of just segregating it to a separate entity. You're welcome.
Anything else? Seeing none, thank you. Have a good night.